fantastic episode. Very moving, very funny, very scary at points as well. That very scary figure we saw at the beginning and the end. So, Chris, could you tell us first why you decided to move it from Mallorca? Did you feel it was time to move on?
Tax breaks.
Tax breaks.
No, we thought that, I mean, we wanted to go somewhere new, we wanted to sort of separate out the 3 seasons as much as possible, to not reinvent it, but start in a new precinct. And as you know, from episode 2, we're actually moving forward in time as well. So just to sort of make a big change.
John, we saw a very moving scene where you were saying goodbye to your children by your ex-wife. How do you think the characters cope with these very testing circumstances that they find themselves in?
Well, not very well, which, probably makes for better drama. Well, they say goodbye, and then, like Chris says, we kind of fast forward 2 years. So the beginning of this series is very, very different to the other two. I think it takes us into new territory. We went on holiday apparently a week ago, didn't we? On this. So 1 and 2 have been over the course of 2 weeks or whatever it is. And then, I don't know if I'm giving away I am, but at the beginning of episode 2, it says 2 years later. So that in itself is a whole new plot device, I think, new to this show.
And Max, how does Woody cope in the new situation in South Africa?
Well, he's gone from being a teetotal, guy who looks after certain situations and cares about people to falling off the wagon a little bit under the pressure. But I do think about what I like about Woody is that I think the other chaps, if there is some kind of dynamic and there is a problem, I think they sort of do congregate towards him because he's a survivor through, I think, his journey as an alcoholic and drug addict, and through his ex-girlfriend killing herself and coming out on top from that, which inevitably most ex-addicts do. They become a lot stronger.
Mm-hmm. And Mark, we see Rick in this episode right at the end there, beginning to fall apart. Does that disintegration continue, including jumping through various glass tables and things like that?
Yeah. He, he's quite weak, isn't he? I was watching it. It's quite very pathetic. But I'm not seen it for a while, but I think I've become a cocaine dealer, don't I? Yeah, I've become a cocaine dealer. And I've got a nice place on the beach and successful coke dealer, and trying to sleep with Kirsten Waring.
What about in the show, though?
Yeah.
You hear a wing job. Mark, if you could just continue.
That's it, really. I think I end up in like a rehab, and can I talk about this? Yeah, and the boys come and get me out, and
I can get you.
you come and get me out, and then we sort of go on the run again, don't we? Yeah. But it's all it's all downhill. Yeah.
Phil, could you tell us a bit about where Quinn lands up?
Check it. He ends up in South Africa with the others, obviously, but he ends up running quite a dodgy club in Cape Town for ex-diplomats, and I think out of all the characters, he's sort of the most removed in many respects from his background. He's the one that would probably embrace change more than the others. Because, coming from where he came from, a broken marriage, and 2 sort of grown-up children that have sort of gone on to do their own things, I think he's in a different sort of place in that respect. He's slightly removed from it all, and if anybody's going to start fresh, I think he's the best equipped for it at this stage of the series.
And you do some sex scenes.
And I get to have sex. Not just one side.
Sex, everybody else has had sex in the show. Chris, season 9?
That's when you have sex with each other.
Doesn't make you a bad person.
Chris, one of the striking things about the series is how unpredictable it is in a good way. So many TV dramas are very formulaic, and you say, oh, I can see what's coming next. Is it hard to sustain those twists and turns that keep surprising us?
It is, but it's also one of the biggest challenges that we try to embrace. I mean, for me, surprises are the most important thing of all. When I watch something, that's what I enjoy the most, is being surprised and things happening that I don't expect. So that's always the challenge as we start to storyline this system. How can we make it as surprising and different and weird as possible? So that's good that you feel that way.
Yeah. John, it's a very interesting series about friendship, and in the second episode we see the way that as soon as they're reunited, Rick and Baxter start bickering as they have done for 25 years in a way that old friends only can. What do you think the show says about friendship? Is it about the closeness that these friends have?
I think from series 1, I think a lot of people around our age can relate to this. It's friends that you were very close to when you were growing up, and you had such great times together, and then moved on and got married and had kids and moved away and grown apart, and then just trying to get back together again to try and recreate the old times never quite works. It really doesn't work this lot. It goes terribly wrong. But I think everybody can relate to that. But they're friends, and they love each other, and they need each other more than they actually realise. And that's the great thing about it. That I think when we all get split up in this one, we've been apart for 2 years, and when you see us again, and hopefully the audience will want us to get back together. As the four of us.
One of the saddest scenes is when Quinn walks past your character and completely ignores him. Yeah. And I think that's very touching, because you know how close they are, but because of the situation, he can't have any contact with him.
Yeah. Well, it's an extreme situation.
Yeah.
How would you deal with that yourself and your friends?
Max, there's obviously a very good chemistry between you four. Is that important that translates to the screen?
Yeah, I think that, when we first got together for the show, we'd all crossed each other's paths. Mark had worked with Phil and John a few times. I'd worked with Mark. I've not worked with John, and I've not worked with Phil. But John and I think it was '97, I did Tom Jones and John did The Lakes. And throughout the years, we'd all been sort of on the same sort of platter within the dynamic of jobs, and going for the same sort of job. So really, initially, it was a recipe for disaster. It could have been. But we got on the set on the first day, and I remember it vividly. We were doing a really pretty heavy scene. And the four of us, and John and I had a face-off moment, and I remember thinking, fucking hell, he's doing great work. And I said that was awesome. I think John went, what? I think he thought I was taking the piss. But very, very quickly, by the end of that day, we all realised that it'd be incredibly beneficial to support each other with the work. And what that gives us by now, in the third series, we're incredibly close friends. We speak to each other probably once a week and email each other, and that gives you the dynamic in the area to be able to push all the other nuances within the show. So the hatred and the anger, the hatred and the anger here can be pushed because deep down there's a very solid relationship. As actors, that's wonderful, because then there's a plethora of stuff you can go through and you can really push it out there.
Mark, they're all great characters. How similar are you in real life to these characters?
I think we're all very different.
Glad you said that.
No, we are. We're all completely different. Who's the most different? I would say probably Max is the biggest difference between what he is as a person and what he is.
Because he's nice, Woody.
What do you say? It's a compliment. But you'll see that very well. We're all very different. I just remember when it started, I just said to Chris that I just wanted to shout at John a lot. So I asked him to write me a lot of stuff about Shelton.
Where did that come from?
I don't know. I like Shelton, yeah. So.
Weird.
Another thing that Chris said that I've sort of nicked was that he thought of us as a family, and I really like this. And so Phil would be the dad, and John would be the mum. Max is the good child, and I'm the naughty one, and I quite like that. But we also like to think of us as the Beatles, and we try and work that out. And I think Phil is John Lennon. No, you're Ringo Starr. Paul McCartney and I'd be George.
Oh, Wicked, so it's a time can't coming up in 20.
But we're not the Beatles, we're just four actors doing a show.
Me and Phil were definitely the parents.
Yeah, we are
Naughty children.
naughty boys. There's a lot of them.
Phil, the show looks wonderful on the big screen here. Adrian Shergold's done a marvellous job directing it. What advantage was there shooting in South Africa? What did it add to the series, do you think?
Well, I think a lot of the time, from as a viewer, you tend to sort of see South Africa, and particularly Cape Town, used a lot, but used for commercial purposes, for adverts and things, or for doubling for somewhere, for California, whatever. And it's such a beautiful city. So it was kind of nice to be able to film there and to actually show off Cape Town for its actual beauty, And I think, for all its faults, I mean, I sort of personally felt quite in love with South Africa. I think it's the most extraordinary country.
And the geography of the whole place and the way it's set out, I mean, you basically need to point your camera and all.
Sorry, Max.
Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry to interrupt you, interrupted me earlier. But the geography of the place. Sorry about that. You're dragging it out. Talk a glass eye to sleep. The geography of the place, the minute you point a camera, it looks incredibly filmic, and with Adrian's vision, I think that is what he's created.
I was going to get onto that, Adrian.
Yes, I did it. Nobody likes me more than you. And no,
It's very sunny.
no,
This is the only job where they make you get a suntan. Because when we turn up on day one, they put us in paper pans.
Well,
and
It's a spray tan.
and then they spray.
Stretch to get us out there 3 weeks early so we can get a suntan. They just spray tan us.
Yeah, they spray tan us. Max sometimes does it with the sock.
Yeah.
And they spray us, and then they.
It's a bit like icing a cake.
And then we have to get. Then we have to sunbathe until our base tan is up to the spray tan. Then we don't have the spray tan anymore.
Well, I was concerned because I only had sports training ankle socks initially, but I'd also packed my Manchester United full-length socks, so that covered the whole deal.
Max sunbathes a lot, but then he gets brown.
But we do all get on.
But Max is always sunbathing. Give a look on his apartment, he'll be out there sunbathing.
Oh,
Chris, Chris,
Save
us, yes.
Save us.
You
Chris,
can see where the priorities are. The process.
You've already shot the fourth series. What can you tell us about that, or absolutely nothing at all?
The fourth series sort of picks up from where the third series ends and then spirals out of control in a very exciting, unexpected way and has a phenomenally unexpected ending. Great.
Sounds great.
Who's in it?
It says here.
Wait till you saw that, can't wait to see it.
John, as we were discussing, and you proved the chemistry between you is great, have you discussed working on something else together?
Well, I don't think me and Phil are allowed to work together anymore.
Ah.
People are starting to get a bit.
Incestuous.
Yeah. We're always discussing it. If we can get away with it, we definitely will. Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah.
A musical or?
A musical version of somebody that likes me. Yeah. I don't know. We'd love to. I think we're pushing it here now. We've been working together every year for about the last 10 years. So So I think we'll have to find something else to do. But we'd love to work together again, and we're trying to work it out.
I wonder if anyone in the audience would like to ask a question.
Brilliant.
Yes, Tim.
Through the microphone, shall I just shout?
I'll repeat the question.
Okay, it's a question for the four guys. I really enjoyed this. I wondered if you could tell me, each of you, what was the most challenging scene you had to film in the course of this third series?
So yes, if you could tell us the most challenging scene that you had to film.
We filmed it a year ago.
The one with the most lines. I think actually the first scene from what I remember was the phone calls, wasn't it? I think that was our first day. Wasn't it? Adrian?
I think pitching the opening scene, given that it's a third series, and inevitably with the first episode of the third series, you've got to set up plot, you've got to do a lot of different things. And I remember that first day thinking, you know, this is difficult to place it right, because actually that dictates where we're going to go for the rest of the show. And I think that what Chris has done there with that first episode is given enough and plentiful different dynamics, if you like, you know what I mean? But I remember that day, apart from the sun blasting in our eyeballs and not being able to see each other, I remember that being quite tricky. And with the new character with Jamie coming in as well, and getting that dynamic right between the boys and with her, you know. But yeah, the phone calls were obviously.
The trickiest thing, I think, I don't know if they'd agree, but I think for everybody's job, I think the trickiest, because we obviously film it all out of sequence. And so we'll do episode 3, and then followed by scene from episode 1, and then followed by scene from episode 4, you know, but it's just the way it happens. But that's tricky, because episode 1 is 2 years earlier. So that was difficult for everybody. We had to remember that 2 years had gone by, you know, within minutes, you know, and try and sort of change it for different for everybody, for costume, for makeup, for everybody, you know. So that was the big challenge that I remember from it.
It is. It's because you're not shooting chronologically. It is you have to remember everything that you're doing, and within each scene you've got to remember what you did before and what you did after, and to try and get some kind of consistency with the performers.
I'd say, you know, in general, the whole of it's very enjoyable and sort of relatively easy to do, really. It's kind of very throwaway and it's great. But then every now and again, Chris will always give you one sort of breakdown scene, and in my experience of it with Adrian, it's like whatever you think you're going to do with the breakdown scene, Adrian will push it further. And that kind of started when Alvaro got his head blown off. I remember he just kept saying to me, you know, I don't know what I thought was right, so I was kind of in control of it. And then he said, no, you really got to go at it, really go. And then Adrian as a director will push you out of your comfort zone, and then you hand all the control over to him, and that's also quite scary.
Yeah, I just add that I think we're blessed with a great continuity with this show. We have Adrian at the helm, we have Tony Ling, who's a fantastic DOP, and Finn McGrath, who's our first assistant, and the three of them will work together as much as they can. And that's
our costume. MJ, our costume.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Sorry, MJ. But you know, exactly, it's a very similar crew in terms of the heads of department, and it creates it's a great sort of comfort for us having that sort of trust that we have and with the crew that know the show so well. And so it's like a family. It is a big family.
It's a rarity in the business nowadays to be able to. You're lucky if you can come away from a job with maybe 1 or 2 friends, crew or cast members, and we've been so fortunate with this show that we've had 3.5 years of doing it, and in beautiful locations, and we're really, really lucky because the climate seems to be changing in the business, and there's more pressure on networks to make successful shows. There wasn't a day that went by where we didn't pinch ourselves basically and say we're really lucky to be doing it, you know.
Yeah, none of it is difficult really. I mean, it's a dream job. We
Yeah.
have like a family situation on set, you know, and a lot of that is down to the brilliant Adrian Shergold, who makes it very, very, very easy to go to work.
For sure.
So we had a great time.
Yes, Mary.
This is the ultimate holiday gone bad story, really, isn't it? Have any of you guys had an interesting or scary experience on a holiday that's gone not as you expected?
I'll tell you, can I just say very quickly actually, just last year I went back to Mallorca with my family and I had a nightmare with EasyJet. Supposed to go to Gatwick, booked in and everything, had to go from there, ended up going to Stansted. Tried to get them on, you're offered compensation, etc. It's a nightmare. There's a drama in it somewhere though. It took me months actually, and it's that awful thing, you think the amount of people that go through that kind of stuff to get the money back. So I found out a mate of mine who's in business, so he's the managing director of EasyJet. I got the email, got the money back within 6 days. Just goes to show,
I always have terrible holidays, actually. Always. They always go wrong. Cursed. Don't go on holiday with me.
In what way?
There's always a delay. It's always a nightmare. There's like people are being sick. There's like stomach. It always goes terribly, terribly wrong. Not as bad as this. Sorry.
I've never been on a lad's holiday, so this was my first experience of a lad's holiday. I always go on my own because I'm single.
Mark's
Single and lonely. And on Twitter.
What's your name on Twitter?
Mark_Warren_.
Mark_Warren_, single, Pisces, ready to rock and roll.
What about you, Max? Have you had any bad experiences?
Hi, girls. Sorry. I haven't. I've been very fortunate. I've had some wonderful holidays, and no, nothing's gone wrong. I went on the Orient Express for my 40th with my family down to Venice, and that was incredible. Just trying to think of any other companies that I can promote. Got a great deal on that one. Maldives, simply Maldives, obviously also on Twitter. That's about it. The memoir, of course, that's great, always did as Clifton, of course, in Tampa.
To pick up the Cayman Islands.
Yeah, the Ritz-Carlton and the Cayman Islands, actually.
Sorry, Neil.
How do you spend your free time in South Africa? Did you go on safari or cage diving with sharks?
We've got that much free time. Safari.
Did you go horse riding?
Yeah, we went. We do 11-day fortnights, so we shoot Monday to Saturday, and then Saturday night you might have a slight blowout, you know, and then Sunday morning you wake up thinking we're up at 5:30 tomorrow, and but we were very lucky on Phil's 60th. Phil's family was out, John's family was out, and
Because I'm single.
Mark was incredibly busy with some other stuff, and we, with curtains closed, of course, and we went out on a wonderful horse riding adventure. So we were riding, and obviously Mark was, and
I was staying with my Kindle.
and we had a great time. And the year before, this is the great thing about the relationship with the four of us. On days off, you normally want to stay away from crew, actors, you want to do your own space, but we sort of missed each other, and we'd have a meal together, or we'd go out for a trek, or Phil and I went to Franschhoek on one day 2 years ago, and
Fell in love. They did fall in love with each other.
we had a wonderful day. We were hungover and calling each other to basically bail out, and we had a driver outside, and we were both engaged at the time. To each other. The phones were together, so we were both at exactly the same time, hi girls, same time with this other one, trying to get hold of each other to say let's cancel it, and we didn't, and we went, and it ended up being one of the best days of the whole shoot. And we've been pounding each other ever since.
Hence.
Chris and myself and Suzanne Mackey, the executive producer, we went on a safari for 4 nights at the end of series 3, and that was amazing.
My family went on safari. I couldn't go because I was working, but they had a great time apparently. Yeah. We didn't really have time to go on safari. I mean, we'd get like 1 day off, 2 days off here and there. You know, we were working, but the working was such fun anyway, so it didn't really matter.
Yeah, it wasn't like working.
It wasn't like doing rewires in offside on the floorboards.
Any questions?
Yes.
Hannah from Closer, how did you cope with the heat filming?
Sunblock.
50. That's a 50.
Yeah, keeping the shade. It's very strong out there. It's
I think it's very, very, very hot. It's too hot, actually.
I went running for an hour at midday with my top off, and I wouldn't do that again.
He got sunstroke. He was really poorly.
Well, I think we all got sunstroke at some point, didn't we? When we were filming in the desert, there's a desert, well, you saw it, the desert sequence, that we were all a little bit lally after that, because you're getting, because obviously it's bouncing off of the sand as well, with the rays that are all over the place, and it's pretty full on. I'd say you wouldn't last long in the desert. I mean, you wouldn't, would you?
No, it's pretty hot.
I think, yeah.
No, comparison, no.
So the desert's hot, we've established.
Yeah, exactly.
Max, I wanted to ask a question about acting with your dad. In the second episode, he appears as British Consul. What was that like?
It was amazing. My dad gets on with all the boys that have been out. He comes out on jobs that I do occasionally when he's not working, but he's been acting for the last sort of 5 or 6 years, and he's an impressionist, my dad, and an amazing musician. What a beautiful man. And Chris said, and Adrian together said, look, there's a party which your old man doing, and I said, yeah, he's going to be out there anyway. So they stayed on the flight, and I paid for that. But he came out, and it was great, but inevitably what happens when you're guesting on a show, if you've got 1 or 2 lines, there's more pressure than having a soliloquy. I mean, it's like horrendous. So I think he was a bit nervous, but he was just great, and the boys all love him.
The commander.
The commander.
The fifth
commander.
He is the fifth leader.
Yes, Mary, last question from Mary.
Oh, that lady's got one there.
Oh, sorry, yes, and then you, sorry.
And that lady there.
Oh, and then Anna, okay, then that's it. Right, Mary, then you, and then Anna, okay.
James, you know everybody's name. It's amazing.
Phil, Max touched on it earlier. I think you had a significant birthday. You celebrated it while you were out there.
Yes.
What did you do? The family came out, and are you embracing it?
Yeah, it's my 50s out there. God. Jesus. No, well, I did. Actually, I have to say, the number is a bit depressing when you have to sort of write it down on you go to the doctors for your flu jab.
You don't look 50, Phil.
Your pension. Cheers, kids. It's going work. But we had a lovely day, because all our families, John's family were out there, and it was John's daughter's birthday the day before mine, Molly's birthday. She was 9, and I was with me.
She was 6.
What?
She was 6.
Oh, sorry, she was 6, yeah. I was thinking of mine.
Not 50.
Sorry. Yeah, so actually, you get to 50.
We got our children.
And so we had a really lovely day. We just went out to Special Reader's Kloof, which was a farm with stunt horses, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And we just went riding for the morning and had a very, very long lunch. And I just remember Max's horse was kept stopping off to eat, and you refused to give it a nudge because you were terrified that if you gave it a nudge it would go over. I think I'd been shocked.
The exciting thing was that out of all the boys, I got put on the. They're all stunt horses, but I got put on the one that if you pull it to the right a bit, it thinks it's been shot and falls over. So, you do the math.
Yes.
My name's Rihanna from West Magazine. When you first started on the show, did you ever imagine the reception it would get and that you'd be here talking about Series 3?
No.
No, they could have hated it, because everybody could have hated us all and just thought we were just having a bit of fun in the sun. And
I'm sure some people do.
But what Adrian made of it and what Chris wrote, it was unexpected, and it got nominated for a BAFTA, and then everybody sort of got on the bandwagon then and was completely behind it. But it could have gone either way, really. So
We're certainly delighted that we've ended up doing 4. which has been amazing. And again, reverting back to we all go off and do different jobs away from each other. Phil likens it to like if we did a band, being a band and doing your solo projects. And again, inevitably what happens, you don't get the same experience, not just because you're not with your friends, but because you're with, with different dynamics, whether it's here, whether it's in Europe, wherever it is. And this has been just a complete dream. And, we're lucky that we've got 4 seasons out of initially what was just an idea from Mark to do a thing about the band, and then Chris Cole came on board, and Chris's idea is synopsis and treatment just blew everything out of the water. It was excellent, and it's been wonderful.
And last question for you.
How, you've done 4 and the plans to do more, and how long do you think you keep going for it? End up like last of summer one?
I think it's probably it.
I think 4 is probably it. I mean, there's only so much you can do with the audience where you're keeping them involved and bringing them on the journey. And again, related to Chris, it's my birthday, so I want a nice present off him. But he to create what I think is great about the show is it's a very unbelievable dynamic what the boys get into. However, most audience members really believe it and they're there, and I think that's what's been successful about the show. And it's going to be sad because the 4 is probably going to be the last one.
Well, on that bombshell, I would like to say a massive thank you to the panel, Chris, Phil, Mark, Max and John. Thank you very much.